Welcome to the deep dive. You know that moment when you've put all this effort into market research, you're expecting these brilliant insights, and you just get, well, kind of nothing.
Hmm. Yeah. Less than helpful.
Exactly. So today, we're digging into some ideas from cognitive market research about why that happens, why research sometimes falls flat, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it to get real answers.
Right. Because we know you want the useful stuff, the actionable insights, without getting totally bogged down.
We'll cut to the chase.
It's a super common frustration, honestly. You run the surveys, you crunch the numbers, but it feels like you're still guessing.
So our mission today is to pinpoint why that happens and give you some solid strategies to fix it.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so cognitive market research starts by saying, look, the first step isn't always more research. It's figuring out why the research you did do didn't work.
Yeah.
Like diagnosing the problem first.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
And they flag a few key areas where things tend to go wrong. First one, flawed research design.
Seems foundational.
It is. But it can be subtle. Maybe your survey questions are a bit ambiguous or even leading, like, don't you agree our product is amazing?
Yeah. Okay, not exactly objective.
Not at all. Or maybe the sample you use isn't really representative. The whole setup, the framework, it needs to be solid, scientifically sound, and really focused on your objectives.
Right, like using the wrong tool for the job,
Hmm.
which kind of leads into the next point they make, inaccurate targeting.
Oh, definitely. Big one. If your research isn't talking to the right people, the people who actually make up your target market, well, the findings are going to be skewed. Simple as that.
So if you're selling, I don't know, skateboards, but you're surveying retirees.
Pretty much. Your data pool has to mirror the audience you actually care about, their demographics, how they think, psychographic.
Okay, and that links to misaligned objectives, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Where the research questions aren't actually tackling the real business problem.
Precisely. You might be asking interesting questions, maybe, but if they don't connect to the actual decisions you need to make or the challenges you're facing.
Then the answers don't really help. You get data, but not direction.
Exactly. It's just information for information's sake, not insight.
And here's one that I think is increasingly relevant: outdated methods.
Yeah.
Sticking to the same old ways when the market's changing so fast.
Yeah, this is critical. The way we can collect and analyze data has changed massively. Cognitive market research really pushes for embracing, modern analytics, looking at data series over time, using social listening.
Social listening, like tuning into what people are saying online.
Exactly. Real-time conversations. It catches things traditional methods might miss entirely because markets evolve and, well, research methods have to evolve too.
Okay, but then there's the flip side: data overload.
Yeah.
Getting buried in too much information.
Right. It's ironic. You gather all this data, but then you can't see the wood for the trees. It obscures the meaningful trends.
So the key is focus.
Yeah, focus on the key metrics, the insights that actually relate back to your goals. Don't get lost in the noise. It's about finding the signal.
Finding the signal. I like that. And the last big diagnostic point they mention is bias, both in collecting data and analyzing it.
Unconscious biases can creep in so easily. It can affect how you word questions, who you choose to survey, how you interpret the results.
Which basically undermines the whole thing if you're not careful.
Totally. You need methodologies that are as objective as possible and impartial analysis. Easier said than done sometimes, but crucial.
Okay, so those are some of the core problems. But what about fixing them? They had this fast fact I thought was interesting,
Oh, yeah.
that lots of companies are actually rethinking their traditional research because it's just not cutting it anymore. They're shifting to more dynamic tools.
Like the social listening we just mentioned. The article uses Sprout Social as an example, showing how monitoring those real-time online chats can uncover trends or shifts in opinion that a survey you ran 3 months ago would completely miss.
It's like having a constant finger on the pulse.
Pretty much. It's immediate, often more candid feedback.
And another example they used was Asana, the project management tool folks.
Right, Asana. Their approach was more about super focused direct feedback.
Yeah, instead of broad market stuff, they went straight to their users. Surveys asking, what features do you actually use? What drives you crazy? What needs improving?
Which is brilliant because it directly connects what they build next to what their actual customers are asking for. Improves the product, improves satisfaction. Makes total sense.
So, okay, we've identified potential problems and seen some examples of shifting approaches. What's next? Cognitive market research says it's about refining the questions themselves.
Absolutely key. If your questions are vague or just off, the answers won't be useful. You need specific, measurable, actionable questions.
You get an example of that shift.
Sure. So instead of asking something really broad like, what do consumers think about our product? Which could mean anything.
Right, very open-ended.
You'd get way more specific, like what specific factors influence how consumers perceive our product's quality, and how can we improve on those specific factors? See the difference?
Yeah, much sharper. It gives you a clear path for investigation, points you towards things you can actually change.
Exactly. It guides the analysis, leads to proper insights, not just opinions.
Okay, better questions.
Yeah.
Now, improving how we collect the data. Poor collection is another big failure point, right?
Huge. One main strategy is just diversify your sources. Don't rely on only surveys or only web analytics.
Mix it up.
Yeah. Use primary research surveys, sure, but also focus groups, interviews, and combine that with secondary stuff, industry reports, competitor analysis, web data, get a fuller picture.
Like getting multiple viewpoints on the same event. And technology plays a role here, too.
Oh, massively. Things like AI-driven analytics can spot patterns humans might miss in large data sets. Sentiment analysis can, gauge the emotion in text feedback automatically. Predictive modeling tries to forecast trends.
So using tech to go deeper and maybe faster.
Deeper, faster, and often revealing things hidden beneath the surface.
They also mention A/B testing, which I usually think of for websites or ads. How does that apply here?
Well, you can use it to test your research methods, like try 2 different survey question formats on smaller groups, see which one gives clearer, more reliable data before you roll it out big time. It's a validation tool.
Smart. De-risking the main study. And the last point on collection was adopting agile research practices. Sounds like tech development jargon.
Yeah, it comes from there, but the principle applies. It just means being flexible, iterative, not having a rigid plan you stick to no matter what.
So if you find something interesting or unexpected early on,
you adapt. You adjust your questions, maybe tweak your methods based on those initial insights. The market changes, so your research process needs to be able to change with it. It's about learning as you go.
Right. More responsive. Okay, better questions, better data collection. Now let's tackle that thorny issue of bias again. How do we actively address biases and assumptions?
It's tough because they can be unconscious, but you have to try. It really compromises reliability otherwise. Starts with the questions again.
Checking them for neutrality.
Exactly. Scrutinize the wording. Are you leading the witness? Making assumptions. The article had that great example. Don't ask, why do you like our product? Ask something open, like, what are your thoughts on our product?
Much more neutral. Lets them bring up positives and negatives.
Precisely. And getting others involved helps catch things you miss. Peer reviews of your questions or survey design.
Or doing small pilot tests first.
Yes. Pilot tests are great for identifying confusing questions or, subtle biases before you commit fully.
And then there's blind analysis. What's that about?
That's basically where you have different researchers analyze the same data, but independently. They don't know what the others are finding.
Ah, okay. To see if they reach similar conclusions.
Exactly. If multiple independent analyses point the same way, you can be much more confident in the findings. If they come up with wildly different interpretations, well, that tells you something too.
Tells you maybe the data is ambiguous, or the method was flawed, or bias is creeping in somewhere.
Right. It forces you to dig deeper into why the interpretations differ. It really strengthens the credibility.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for objectivity. So final stage. We've got our hopefully unbiased, well-collected data. Now we need to make sense of it, all the analysis and interpretation. This is where it all comes together, but also where it can fall apart.
Absolutely. This is where data becomes knowledge, or a misinterpretation leads you down the wrong path. A key piece of advice here is look for trends, not outliers.
Don't get distracted by the weird one-off results.
Well, not just the outliers. Sometimes a consistent outlier pattern can signal something new starting. But generally, you want to base your understanding on the broader patterns, the consistent trends in the data. That gives you a more reliable picture of market behavior.
Okay, focus on the big picture trend. And then contextualize your findings. Numbers aren't enough on their own.
Never. You have to put them in context. How does this finding compare to last year? To your competitors? To industry benchmarks? To what's happening in the economy?
So if your sales went up 5%.
Is that good? Maybe. But if the whole industry grew 15%, then maybe your 5% isn't so great after all. Context is everything for understanding significance.
Got it. And the final tip for analysis, use data visualization. Making it visual.
Yeah, don't underestimate this. Good graphs, charts, heat maps, dashboards. They make complex data understandable at a glance.
Helps you spot the trends you were just talking about.
Exactly. Patterns jump out. Relationships become clearer. It makes it easier for you to understand and, crucially, easier to communicate the key takeaways to others, to your team or stakeholders.
Right. So much easier than wading through spreadsheets.
9 days sometimes.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, when market research seems to be hitting a dead end, the solution isn't necessarily just to give up. It's about being systematic.
Yeah, it's what cognitive market research really emphasizes. Diagnose the problem first. Is it the design, the targeting, the methods, bias? Then be willing to adapt, to change your approach.
Refine those questions, improve data collection, tackle bias head on.
And finally, analyze the data thoughtfully, looking for real trends in the proper context. Commit to that impartial analysis.
So a provocative thought for you listening. Think about your own experiences, maybe not even formal market research, but just trying to gather information or understand something complex.
Which of these issues might pop up? Asking vague questions, relying on one source, maybe letting your own assumptions color how you see things.
Yeah, it makes you think how applying these basic principles, clearer questions, seeking diverse input, trying to be objective can actually lead to a more reliable understanding in, well, pretty much any situation.
It's a really transferable skill set, and it's worth remembering these insights come from Kalyani Rajay, someone with deep experience across loads of industries in research and strategy. So it's grounded in practice.
It's definitely food for thought. Well, thanks for digging into this with us today.
My pleasure.
Join us next time for another deep dive.